Coming up on the Sky News Daily, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, our political editor Beth Rigby, has been speaking to Rachel Reeves.
The world is becoming increasingly complex and volatile. How can we make sense of it all?
I'm Richard Engel.
And I'm Yelda Hakim.
And we present Sky News' latest podcast, The World. Each week, we'll cut through the noise to guide you through the week's global events and explain to you why what happens out there matters to you wherever you are.
We're on the ground in some of the world's toughest places. Listen now to The World with Richard Engel and me, Yelda Hakim, wherever you get your podcasts.
Sky News' Unreliable Witness is back. There is a new twist in the Eleanor Williams story, the girl who lied, jailed for fabricating evidence of a grooming gang. In court, it was suggested her diaries were fake, but we've got extracts, and if they were, somehow, within the fantasy, Eleanor identified a real monster.
Barrel got branded to be lying town. It's not. Grooming was happening here.
Follow Unreliable Witness in your podcast app.
Hi everyone, Neil Patterson here. Do hope it's been a good week. Today on The Daily, we want to bring you a bit of bonus Beth Rigby. Our political editor has been inside number 11 Downing Street for an extended chat with the second most powerful person in government. Indeed, on International Women's Day, Rachel Reeves spoke about being the first female Chancellor in 800 years and combining that role with being a mother. They discussed the concerns over her CV, her being described as Rachel from accounts, tax rises, who's to blame for the state of the economy, the thrifty hack that saves the Chancellor £5 every day. All that and much more was covered. You can hear the full interview on Beth's Electoral Dysfunction podcast, but here's just a taste.
I wanted to ask you about the weekend just gone, because you were here in Downing Street when President Zelensky came. You signed an agreement with him to facilitate more lending from the UK government. What was it like? What was it like here on Saturday with Zelensky after that Trump blow up in the White House?
I expect the bit of it that he will always remember is those scenes on Whitehall with the public cheering. Incredibly special. I think the Prime Minister said it in Parliament this week. Made all of us, I think, incredibly proud of our country that people turned out to cheer the Ukrainian president. I think, so many of us, I think, are in awe of what he's done and the leadership that he's shown. Talk about all of the sort of the challenges that I faced. I mean, they pale into insignificance compared to the challenges that him and his government and my opposite number in Ukraine, Sergei Marchenko, face on a daily basis.
Because I looked at the footage and he looked like a man, to be honest, that needed an arm put around him.
Well, I think that him and Keir obviously got a very good relationship and they've been speaking pretty intensely, both leading up to that meeting and indeed since that meeting. It's obviously a huge, challenge, and I'm proud of what our country has done cross-party to be able to support Ukraine. I was earlier today at RAF Northolt meeting some of the defence businesses that are producing some of the equipment, some of the drones, some of the missiles that are being used in Ukraine, produced here in Britain. And one of the things that people who worked for those companies kept saying to me was about the pride they feel in the job that they do, knowing that they are supporting the Ukrainian people and actually supporting the whole of Europe, because this isn't just their battle, it's our battle too.
He also got you working quite hard the weekend before last, because it's all go here at weekends these days. You had to do the defence spend announcement. Can you just sort of lift the lid on that a little bit in terms of it's a manifesto pledge broken, you perhaps didn't really want to do it as Chancellor, and then you had to find the money. It happened really quicker.
Well, look, I've always been really clear. If you make any commitment, you've got to say where the money's going to come from. That's really important to me because our public finances have got into a real mess in the last few years. And so when Keir and I discussed about how we were going to make sure this money was available, we wanted to be really clear. Because also it's not a one-off thing.
It wasn't an option though. I mean, did you feel, because he kind of felt he needed to take it to Trump. Yeah, we hear you about NATO spending and defence spending. Here I am, and we're going to accelerate it. And you're his Chancellor. If the PM wants to do it, you're going to have to do it. But did you just say, look, I'm only doing it if we find the money right now and we've got to do it this way?
That's not how Keir and me work. We work in partnership. We've known that we need to increase defence spending.
But the decision was taken really late, wasn't it? It was like taken at the end of the weekend, wasn't it? Like on the Sunday or something.
Well, it's something we've been working on for quite a while now. Obviously, we've got the spending review coming up in June. But as you sort of started off this section of the podcast, the world has changed. We can all see it before our eyes. And Keir and I worked closely on that announcement. But I thought it was very important that you can't just borrow to fund this additional spending, because this is not just a one-off thing. We're going to have to keep spending at these elevated levels. We're going to have to take it further. The Prime Minister said in his statement to Parliament that subject to economic and fiscal circumstances, we want to get to 3% of GDP in the next Parliament.
Yeah.
So you can't just borrow to fund something like that, because this is ongoing expenditure. And that's why we made the decision to reduce development spending and put that money into our defence budgets. These
are big decisions for you, and I just want to come quickly to the spring statement. Can you just quickly explain what that actually is? It's 3 weeks out. Can you just tell everyone what it is and why you're in a bit of a pickle about it vis-a-vis your own borrowing rules?
The Office for Budget Responsibility does a forecast twice a year on the economy and also on the public finances. I made a commitment. I made a commitment in our manifesto to have one major fiscal event a year. So, unlike the previous government, we're not going to have another budget in the spring. We only just had one in October, and as I said at the time, that was a sort of a once in a generation, once in a parliament type budget. But we do have to provide an update based on the Office of Budget Responsibility's latest numbers. And look, everyone can see that since then, global borrowing costs have increased. There's lots of reasons for that, lots of global developments that have caused that increase in borrowing costs. And I've also been really clear that we're going to continue to meet our fiscal rules, because stability is absolutely essential for a strong economy. But I think people also know that we need to get better value for money for what taxpayers put in. And also we've got to reform our welfare system, because at the moment it's letting down taxpayers because it's costing too much. It's letting down our economy because there's too many people trapped on out of work benefits. And it's letting down the people who are recipients of benefits because they are trapped on benefits rather than actively supported back into work. So we don't need an Office of Budget Responsibility forecast to tell us that we've got to reform our welfare system. We're going to do that because it's the right thing to do.
I mean, the nuts and bolts of this is you've got to find billions in savings, haven't you, to meet your fiscal rules? You've got to have billions of savings.
I'm not going. The
spending.
Office of Budget Responsibility is still working through that process of providing a forecast. I'm not going to provide a running commentary on it, but the reason we need to reform our welfare system is that it is letting taxpayers, the economy, and welfare recipients down. It needs to be reformed to get more people into work. Just sort of, one statistic, there are 1 million young people not in education, employment or training. That is a travesty. Many of those people, I would say the majority of those people, should be working. And under the plans that we're going to bring in, they will be working. And crucially, they will be given support to get back to work. It's too big a burden on the economy because we're missing out on the contribution of people. And what a waste of talent that we park people on benefits rather than supporting them in work. So this is about reforming the system to make it work better for working people, for people on benefits, and the economy as well.
This is from Linda. She says, our public services need help now. What are you doing in the short term to improve this? What's wrong with a small increase in income tax or an increase in the top rate of tax to provide funding? And that really gets to the heart of tax rises. Are you ruling that out, Chancellor?
Well, we put in £26 billion into the National Health Service, the budget in October. And in the first 7 months of this government, we've already provided 2 million additional appointments in the NHS. We made a commitment that there would be 2 million additional appointments a year. We met that in 7 months.
But tax rises, because you put, 26 billion through in October?
Yep.
So what are you? I guess what I'm getting at, are you going to try it? You've got this problem. You've got a squeeze on the public finances. You're going to find that through savings in government spending rather than tax rises? Is that where we're going?
In the budget, we obviously did increase taxes.
Yeah.
We increased national insurance
now, going
contributions
forward,
on businesses. We got rid of the non-dom tax status. We've reformed agricultural and business property relief, VAT on private school fees. So we increased taxes at the budget to plug the gaps in the public finances and to make sure we had money for the National Health Service. But we've just gone through a massive cost of living crisis. For many people, they're still struggling with that cost of living crisis. So I don't think it is the right thing to do to increase income tax, national insurance or VAT on working people. And we made that commitment in our manifesto less than a year ago that we weren't going to increase those taxes on working people. We're not going to renege on that commitment.
Just one more thing. Someone's asked about the 2-child benefit cap. And will you look at that again this Parliament? Is that now becoming really difficult for you given the public finances to look again at it?
Well, the public finances are a real challenge. Total debt is about the size of our economy, of what we produce in a year. So it is a challenge, but we're a Labour government. Of course, we want to reduce child poverty, and we'll look at ways to do that.
Welfare cuts, foreign aid, budget cuts. It's unpopular, isn't it? I mean, are you accepting that you're going to have another run of being a pretty unpopular woman in this country?
Look, in the end, I've got to do the things that I think are right for our country. We are reforming our regulation system, reforming our planning system, putting more capital spending into the economy because we have to grow the economy. And that has been the missing ingredient in our economy the last decade or so. We haven't had economic growth, and that means that living standards have fallen back, and we haven't had the money to invest in our public services. And so that's why growth is the number one priority of this government, growth in all parts of the country to make working people better off. And I've got to make the decisions that are in the long-term interest of our country to put us back on a firmer and a fairer footing.
And you're going to be doing this by the end of this Parliament? Still be in this job, you think?
I hope so.
Yeah? Okay.
And you can hear the full interview on Beth's Electoral Dysfunction podcast, plus, of course, the thoughts and analysis of co-hosts Harriet Harman and Ruth Davidson. All that can be found on your podcast app. But that's a lot from us for this week. The Daily is back Monday. Have a great weekend.
The world is becoming increasingly complex and volatile. How can we make sense of it all?
I'm Richard Engel,
And I'm Yalda Hakim.
and we present Sky News' latest podcast, The World. Each week, we'll cut through the noise to guide you through the week's global events and explain to you why what happens out there matters to you wherever you are.
We're on the ground in some of the world's toughest places. Listen now to The World with Richard Engel and me, Yalda Hakim, wherever you get your podcasts.